Hello and welcome to the Behringer Crawford Museum. We are delighted you decided to join us for the Northern Kentucky Music Legends exhibit. Following this introduction, you will see a series of short interviews with the museum's executive director, members of the exhibit committee, and many of the musicians featured in the exhibit. On behalf of the committee, we hope the exhibit brings back many great memories that you've shared with these musicians who have performed at Northern Kentucky's most popular venues. My distinct pleasure to introduce Northern Kentucky's premier country music entertainer and Bobby Mackey. And Bobby, we're so happy you're here. Thank you so much for taking the time and coming in and sharing with us for this Northern Kentucky music exhibit. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and it's great to be a part of it. I'm honored to be a part of it, and it sounds really exciting.
We got Jerry Gifford here, and you know Jerry's an entertainer as well as you are, but tell us a little bit about your background. You told me off camera you're from Lewis County, and how'd you get interested in country music?
Well, growing up in Lewis County, a little town called Concord right along the Ohio River, and a railroad track ran right by my dad's grocery store. And it was a railroad town. The camp cars there was a side track there, and the camp cars would lay in there during the week. And in the evening, these camp car guys would come down to Dad's store, so that was their entertainment. So Dad got a jukebox in the store. And I still have the jukebox, an old Wurlitzer with the bubbles shooting through it, an old Wurlitzer jukebox.
But don't take it to Pawn Stars. You know, they'd buy it out there in
no,
Vegas.
I'm not giving this up. But it needs a little work done. It'll still play. It'll still play. But these railroad guys would hang around there. And of course, Concord was a dry town, but the county was wet, but Concord was dry. But these guys would have a pint in their back pocket, and they'd buy Cokes, and they'd go around the back of Dad's grocery store and put it in their Cokes, and then they'd get to dancing to the jukebox, and they'd want me to sing along with it. So I'd sing along with the jukebox, singing Hank Williams songs. And, you know, growing up there, music was, as far as I can remember, when, you know, music has been the biggest part of my life. And my mom told me that I was singing by the time I could talk. She taught me to some words to sing. I used to sing 30 Pieces of Silver when I don't even remember it. And
well, now when did you start becoming a paid entertainer?
Well,
then you did it for pleasure. I know you still do, but when did you become a professional?
Well, I started, if I could go back to there, when I was 4 years old, I sang along with Hank Williams songs. Hank was the only voice that I recognized. The radio played. I would sit there by it, but Hank was the only voice I recognized. And I remember the day he died, they were playing nothing but Hank records over and over, nothing but Hank. And my mom had to explain to me why, that, of course, he had died. And I thought that was the end of music. You know, I thought, well, no, he can't be. He's singing on the radio. But when she made me understand that he had passed away, I thought that was the end of music. But anyway, then my teenage years, Buck Owens come along. Buck Owens and the Buckaroos, Don Rich, and boy, that lit me up. That harmony I loved. And so, you know, Buck was my idol in my teenage years. And then Merle Haggard come along. And so, you know, all the Grand Ole Opry stars, I listened to the Grand Ole Opry all the time growing up. But after I got out of high school, I come down to Covington and went to work on the railroad. I worked for the C&O Railroad. And so I got to going around to jam stations in the area, out to Seven Oaks, out in Latonia, or Taylor Mill rather, and playing jam stations, and a band that was all together that had played with Landon Williams. If you remember Landon Williams, he played at the Black Stallion. Well, he got a new group because he was getting ready to go on the road, and these guys couldn't go on the road. So here was Landon's old band, needed a singer, and somebody told Red Jenkins was the leader of the band. somebody told Red about this kid that was coming out to jam session singing. So Red got a hold of me, and he had a gig. He asked me if I could play this Friday night, and then I said yeah, and it was at the Apple in Woodlawn. And
Jerry, you remember that place?
No, I don't.
The Apple in Woodlawn, and it was 1970, and that's when I first started playing music with the band. I hadn't worked with any bands much at all. It was just me and my guitar. I'd go, you know, here and there with the band, but never was rehearsed with the band. So it was Wendy Hargraves, Clyde Markham, Steve Worley, and Red Jenkins. And I always say, you know, that I had never met any of them, but Red asked me if I could be there at the Apple on Friday night, and I showed up.
But musicians can do that, can't they, Jerry? Just like you're talking about having a jam.
In your heart, you know, Bobby, if we've never played together, I'll guarantee you if we got together and did something, it would work.
We'd know the same songs. We'd know the same old songs. And once a song started,
that's all you need.
Nobody have to teach it.
Whatever key, whatever. Yeah, you're right.
And I always say that I showed up and met these guys. We shook hands and come out singing, come out playing music.
That's good.
Now, what venues? What were some of the venues that you played at?
Well, I played at the Apple for a little while, and at the time, Bill Clark, who owned the Apple, had the place rented out to sock hops on Saturday nights, every Saturday night for a while. But we started playing Friday nights, and then we decided that we were going to, when his sock hop thing ran out, he wasn't going to book anymore, and we were going to go there and play. But meanwhile, we come back over here to the Chuck Inn in Highland Heights.
Right.
Remember the Chuck Inn?
Yep.
It was the Granada before that.
Yeah, set up on the hill.
It was the dorm also at one point, right?
Hager Holbrook owned it. It's down there right across from Lowe's now.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we played there for a while on, I think, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, until the sock hops ran out at the Apple. Then we went back there and was there Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I believe. Was there from the fall of '70 till I think it was January '73, I think, when we ended up, we went to the Boulevard over in Springdale. And it was, when I first went there, we went there for 5 nights a week.
Wow.
We were playing 5 nights a week, and Danny Comer, who owned the Boulevard, still does. It's still there. We started tearing walls down. It was like a shopping mall, or shopping strip mall, and he owned the whole mall, and he had a pony keg, and he had a real estate office, and we had the nightclub this big, and we knocked this wall out and went on back here, and knocked the next one out, and we ended up we'd see. I was there 4.5 years, and we I think 450 people, I think, and we played 5 nights a week there for 4.5 years. Then it ended up going to Julie's in Sharonville.
Now, the popularity of country music. I've heard people say country music is real life. Why has country music become so popular?
Well, I don't know. It was always popular with me, and I never did.
But it wasn't always popular with everybody. But now it seems like it's really grown. Would you agree, Jerry?
Well, it's a different style.
Right. Here's what I think.
Today.
Bobby Mackey is a true country star in my heart. There's a lot of music out there, but it's really not true country. Am I correct or not?
You're correct, and I don't knock that. That's what's happening, and it has drawn a lot of younger people into country music, of what country is today, and those people come to my club and they hear my kind of music and they like it too, but my traditional country don't fit with what's going on radio today.
Now, what about venues like Renfro Valley? That's pretty much country, is it not, here in Kentucky?
Yeah, I played the past 2 years. I played the Bluegrass Festival at Renfro Valley because I had a Bluegrass CD out, and so I've got a little bluegrass band that I take and play some festivals. So I did the last 2 years. In June, I've played the Bluegrass Festival down there.
For our visitors here at the museum that are watching this, explain the difference between country music and bluegrass.
Well, it's a thin line. It's a real thin line. You don't have drums in bluegrass, but I love bluegrass music too. I grew up listening to that. A station out of Grayson, Kentucky used to come in real good in Concord, and I listened to bluegrass growing up. But they didn't take the place of Hank Williams in my early days there. But let me go back after I left the Boulevard and I went to Julie's for a year and a half there in Sharonville. That's when I come over to Northern Kentucky and got the old Latin Quarter in Wilder. That was September the 8th, 1978. I opened that place and been there ever since.
Now think about that, Bobby. How many people can say that they have had a successful run in a professional music nightclub? Because that's what you are. There's not many. And I think that's probably one of the longest running and one of the best venues around.
The reason I got it, at the time I got the club, I was at a crossroads. I was either going to move to Nashville or get my own nightclub. And you know, I had a wife and a young daughter at the time, and the security of here, every club I had played, I had always been successful at. The other 3 clubs or 4 clubs, I always had a crowd. So I felt the security of that, and so I chose for the security, thinking, okay, I'm going to have my own nightclub. I can go to Nashville anytime I want to. So, and I did that. But of course, you know, if I'd have moved down there, who knows? You know, that's a big world down there, and a whole lot different. But I spent a lot of time down there and got involved with the studio and did a lot of recording and had the Pepsi Man record that went to the top 50 in Billboard. And Hero Daddy was #1 here in Cincinnati it was #1 here at the radio stations. But that song in particular didn't hit all the major stations throughout the country because it was such a downer, they said. But secondary stations loved it. The secondary stations played it, but not the big stations that made up the charts. So.
Let's talk a little bit about this particular exhibit that Jerry Gifford has been so much a part of. But you as an entertainer, what personally does this exhibit mean to you in being recognized as a Northern Kentucky music legend?
Well, it means a great deal. And you know, off camera today, we've been talking about a lot of great talent from around here through the years. Northern Kentucky talent. There's a world of it, and they need to be recognized. You know, they've come and gone, and but it's going to mean a whole lot to the area, and a lot of attention will be focused on a lot of these musicians that never dreamed they'd ever get that kind of attention.
Now, you guys, before you came here, was sitting outside there, and you had some great stories going. So I didn't get to hear those, so I want to sit back and hear a story or two. So I'm going to turn it over to Jerry and tell some good stories.
Go ahead and give him a couple. What we were talking about out there that, you know, that only we know these kind of things.
Oh, we were talking about, you know, people coming up that I hadn't thought of in years, people that played music around here for years. But you know, to follow up on the answer or the question, you asked me if I could put a cap on that. You know, on Friday and Saturday night when I'm on stage in the club in Wilder, you know, I'm honored every Friday and Saturday night by the people that are there enjoying my music.
You sound like Jerry Gifford.
That's what it is. Right?
It's an honor. But the honor of the Northern Kentucky Music Hall of Fame will go on after the music stops, and that's what it's going to mean to a lot of people.
A fondest memory you have over your career?
I got several, but
well, give us one or two.
Well, playing on the hayride back in 1973. Kenny Price had me on the hayride. I was
McNew and the dancers.
Midwest.
Oh yeah,
Midwestern hayride.
Yeah, but Kenny Price was in charge of it then, and I was working with a group that was playing with Connie Smith, and I was opening shows for Connie Smith, and we played a show in Georgia, and Kenny Price was on the show, but I knew Kenny Price, but you know, he didn't know me, and so we played the high school in, I think, Zebulon, Georgia, and I opened the show. And of course, I sung a song that I love and still sing today, "Guide Me Home, My Georgia Moon." I sung that song, and of course the crowd loved it. They stood up. I got a standing ovation. I'm leaving the stage, and Kenny's waiting in the wings to come on after me. I'm leaving the stage, and he's going on. He said, "Man, where have you been?" He said, "You live up in northern Kentucky?" I said, "Well, yeah." He said, "Well, I need to get you on the hayride." Yeah. So he did.
That's great.
Yeah.
That is a great story.
So.
Any other stories? Would you go to your own venue there at Bobby Mackey's over the years?
You know, every Friday and Saturday night, it's a highlight.
Tell them the story about where you got your bull, because I think that's kind of neat. And what
Yeah. I was on Ernest Tubbs' record shop one time too, and that was exciting back in the early days of my career. After the Grand Ole Opry goes off at the Ernest Tubbs record shop. But anyway, I hadn't had the club too long. It was coming up on a year, and WUBE radio, we started having what they call redneck Rileys. And it was like draft beer was like a quarter or something, and it was just to get musicians in. We had a big jam session on a Sunday, and the station people were there, and I had been hearing about this urban cowboy movie they were making at Mickey Gilley's out in Pasadena. I'd been hearing about it, and I asked the radio station about it, and of course they'd heard some things about it too, but. I got with R.J. Seaford was a sales rep at WSAI that had just gone country just prior to that. So we got to talking about it. Well, he didn't say anything at the time. We just talked about it, and wasn't a couple hours later he called me back, and he'd called out there and found out all about this mechanical bull and how to get it and when to get it, the whole thing. I thought, well, man, I have to see it. I can't order a bull like that not knowing. You know, I know Texas is cowboy oriented, but I didn't know these boys here in Kentucky would be as cowboy as out there. Well, they were. But so RJ and I caught a plane and went out to Houston and went to Gilley's and visited for the night and watched people ride it. And the night we were there was the night they were wrapping up the urban cowboy movie, the scenes in the parking lot when the robbery took place, and the fight took place, and Sissy and Bud got back together and all that. Well, after they finished up the shooting that night, Deborah Winger come in and was riding the bull there in Gilley's. So anyway, before the night was over, I ordered a mechanical bull, and about 2 weeks later it came in. I think October of '79 is when the bull arrived in Wilder. And everything went crazy. Before anybody ever saw the movie, it went crazy. And then the movie came out June of '80, which was 6, 7, 8 months after I had the bull. Then people would go see it in the theater. Then there'd be a line up front for people to get in to see the real thing and ride it. They couldn't wait. So that was an exciting time too.
Well, listen, this has been a distinct pleasure for me to be able to sit at the same table with two Northern Kentucky music legends and Jared Gifford and Bobby Mackey at the same table. And this is history in the making, and we're glad you are part of this exhibit. And I want to thank you for your contribution to music in Northern Kentucky.
Thank you, and thanks for thinking of me to be a part of the Northern Kentucky Hall of Fame.
We're just starting, aren't we, Bobby?
Yes, we are.
Well,
Thank you so much.
We couldn't have it without Bobby Mackey.
Well, I appreciate it.
All right.